The suspicious baggie. The aroma of Meyer's paella filled the small dining room, a fragrant shield against the awkwardness that always seemed to bloom when Carol visited. David beamed, oblivious, as he stirred a heap of saffron-infused rice onto his mother's plate. "You always say you miss Meyer's cooking, Mom." Carol dabbed at her lips with a linen napkin, a theatrical gesture that always grated on Meyer. "It's flavorful, dear. Perhaps a touch heavy on the paprika this time." Meyer plastered on a smile. "I can't win, can I?" as she said lightly, hoping to diffuse the situation. "More wine, anyone?" "Actually," Carol said, her voice dripping with manufactured sweetness, "I seem to have misplaced my reading glasses. They're in my purse, I believe." She gestured vaguely toward the living room, where her oversized leather bag sat perched precariously on the arm of the sofa. "David, darling, would you be a dear and fetch them?" Before David could move, Meyer jumped up. "I'll get them, David. You stay and enjoy your dinner." She needed a moment away from Carol's critical gaze anyway. In the living room, Meyer reached for the heavy purse. It was an expensive thing, all supple leather and gleaming hardware, a stark contrast to Meyer's own well-worn canvas tote. As she lifted it, the purse shifted, and the clasp, which wasn't fully closed, gaped open slightly. A glimpse of something caught her eye. A small, clear baggie, nestled amongst Carol's designer wallet and lipstick case. It contained a white, powdery substance. Meyer's breath hitched. Her heart hammered against her ribs. It couldn't be, could it? She knew next to nothing about drugs, but the images flashed in her mind. Crime shows, news reports, the hushed whispers of addiction. She felt a cold dread creep through her veins. Was Carol involved in something illegal? Or was she, Meyer, jumping to conclusions? Maybe it was just powdered sugar for some bizarre, Carol-esque baking project. But the unease lingered, a knot tightening in her stomach. She quickly snapped the purse shut, grabbed Carol's reading glasses from the inner pocket, and hurried back to the dining room, her mind racing. "Here you go, Carol," Meyer said, handing over the glasses with a shaky smile. She avoided David's concerned look. Carol slipped them on, peering at the label on the wine bottle. "Thank you, dear. My eyes aren't what they used to be." She returned to her meal, seemingly oblivious to the turmoil she had unwittingly unleashed. Meyer picked at her paella, the vibrant colors now muted, the savory aroma replaced by a bitter taste of anxiety. She glanced at David, his brow furrowed as he listened to his mother expound on the latest trends in interior decorating. He seemed so trusting, so innocent. She knew she couldn't ignore what she had seen. She had to find out what was in that baggie. But how? And what if her worst fears were confirmed? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. This visit was already far too eventful. Carol's constant criticism. "Really, Meyer, animal crackers?" Carol's voice dripped with disapproval as she watched 3-year-old Lily happily munching on a giraffe. "They are practically pure sugar. Don't you worry about her teeth?" Meyer plastered on a smile, though her jaw tightened. She had a healthy lunch, Carol. A few animal crackers won't hurt. She busied herself arranging the fruit salad she'd brought, the vibrant colors a stark contrast to the grey knit cardigan Carol favored. David, ever the peacemaker, chimed in. "They're just a treat, Mom. Lily's a healthy girl." Carol waved a dismissive hand. "It's a slippery slope, David. A little sugar here, a little screen time there. Before you know it, she'll be glued to that iPad." Meyer bristled. "Speaking of screen time," she said, trying to keep her voice even, I saw Liam watching cartoons on your phone earlier. For quite a while, actually. Liam was Carol's grandson, delivered to her house promptly every day at 7:30 by his weary parents. Carol's face flushed. That's different. He was being unusually fussy. And educational cartoons are hardly the same as those mindless videos Lily watches. Mindless? Maya repeated, her voice rising. They're interactive learning games. She's learning her alphabet. At 3 years old, she should be outside, playing in the dirt, using her imagination, Carol countered, her voice taking on a sharper edge. Not staring at a glowing screen, rotting her brain. David shifted uncomfortably. Mom, let's not. No, David, Amaya interrupted, her patience finally snapping. I'm tired of this constant criticism. I'm a good mother. I'm doing my best. And I don't need you constantly judging my parenting. Carol's eyes narrowed. I'm only trying to help, Maya. You're still so young. You haven't the experience. Experience isn't everything, Carol. Maybe you should trust that I know what's best for my own child. Maya scooped Lily off the floor, her daughter's small body warm against her. Come on, Lilybug. Let's go play in the garden. Away from the rotting brains. She turned and walked out, leaving David standing awkwardly between his mother's simmering disapproval and the open doorway, the scent of overripe peaches from the fruit salad hanging heavy in the air. The silence was thick, broken only by the distant chirping of birds, a soundtrack to his failure to keep the peace. He knew this was only the beginning. A secret act. The insistent trill of Maya's ringtone sliced through the polite hum of conversation. Excuse me, as she murmured, glancing at the screen. It was her brother, Leo. He rarely called during the day. Hey, what's up? She asked, stepping away from the breakfast table and toward the sun-drenched window. Carol and Daniel continued their discussion about the upcoming neighborhood association meeting. Carol was practically vibrating with indignation about the overgrown hedges on Maple Street. It's Dad, Leo said, his voice tight. He fell. He's at County General. Maya's breath hitched. How bad? They're running tests. I'm on my way there now. I just wanted you to know. I'll come too, Maya said, her mind already racing. Her father, frail but fiercely independent, was the cornerstone of their family. Okay. I'll text you updates. She hung up, her hand trembling slightly. Turning back to the table, she saw Carol's lips pursed, her eyes narrowed. Everything all right, dear? Carol asked, her voice laced with a familiar, cloying concern. My dad, he fell. Leo's taking him to the hospital. Maya's voice wavered. Oh, how dreadful! Carol exclaimed, but her eyes held a strange, almost gleeful light. Maya blinked, trying to shake off the absurd thought. She reached for her purse, which was sitting open on the chair beside her. As she did, she caught a flicker of movement out of the corner of her eye. Carol, thinking Maya was still distracted, was swiftly, almost imperceptibly, reaching into the small, plastic baggie she'd been discreetly holding in her lap and depositing something into Maya's open purse. The same baggie she'd seen in Carol's sewing kit. Time seemed to slow. The scent of brewing coffee and Carol's lavender perfume, usually comforting, now felt suffocating. A wave of nausea washed over Maya, a potent cocktail of fear and betrayal churning in her stomach. Carol straightened, her expression transforming back into one of concerned sympathy. Oh, Maya, you look faint. Perhaps you should sit down. But Meyer couldn't. She stood frozen, the image of Carol's furtive act seared into her mind. The pieces were falling into place, forming a horrifying, undeniable picture. Carol wasn't just judgmental and overbearing. She was framing her. Planting drugs in her purse. The casual remark about the courthouse, the sewing kit, the baggie, it all pointed to a deliberate plan. Her father was in the hospital, and her life was crumbling around her, and Carol, with her carefully constructed facade of concern, was the architect of it all. Framed. Meyer excused herself from the family dominoes game, her heart hammering against her ribs. Carol's saccharine smile as she'd watched Meyer retrieve her purse earlier replayed in her mind. It was the same smile Carol wore when she knew she'd won. Meyer hurried into the guest bedroom, the floral wallpaper seeming to mock her anxiety. She unzipped her purse, her fingers trembling. There, nestled beneath her wallet, was a small, clear baggie filled with white pills. Not the vitamins she actually took. Her breath hitched. This wasn't a joke. Carol was serious. A wave of nausea washed over her. She could see it now. The police, the flashing lights, the accusations. Her mother's face, etched with disappointment. Her father's quiet devastation. Even if she was eventually cleared, the damage would be done. The whispers, the suspicion, the stain on her reputation. She imagined Daniel's struggle to defend her, his own credibility undermined by the arrest. No. She wouldn't let it happen. Confronting Carol directly would be pointless. Carol would simply deny everything, maybe even accuse Meyer of being delusional. No, she needed proof. Something undeniable. She carefully zipped the purse back up, her mind racing. She couldn't just call the police. It would be her word against Carol's, and Carol was a master manipulator. She needed leverage, something concrete she could use to expose Carol's scheme. An idea sparked. Carol kept spare keys to the house in a small, locked box in her closet. She'd mentioned it casually during a conversation about home security. Meyer remembered Carol struggling with the lock just last week. Maybe, just maybe, she could get a copy of the keys, open the box, and find something, a confession, a receipt, anything, that would expose Carol's plan. It was risky, but it was better than waiting to be arrested. She couldn't just sit back and let Carol destroy her life. Her hands still shook, but a new resolve settled within her. She would play Carol's game, but she would play it smarter. The key swap plan. The clatter of dishes faded as Meyer loaded the dishwasher, her mind miles away from the mundane task. Carol's smug face at dinner replayed in her head, a cruel victory plastered across her features. It was infuriating. But simmering anger wouldn't solve anything. She needed proof. Solid, undeniable proof that Carol was behind the planted drugs. Then, it hit her. Like a forgotten melody suddenly resurfacing, she remembered Carol's keychain. A bulky, silver thing overflowing with keys. Her house keys, Meyer assumed, alongside various loyalty cards. And Carol, in her usual ostentatious way, had casually tossed it on the hall table during their last visit. A surge of adrenaline pushed back the lingering fear. It was a long shot, but it was a shot nonetheless. Later that night, the glow of Meyer's laptop illuminated her face. Duplicate keys online, as she typed into the search bar, a knot forming in her stomach. Dozens of websites popped up, each promising identical copies with just a photo. It felt invasive, wrong, but the image of her own mother in jail spurred her on. She selected a reputable-looking site, carefully studying their security measures. The next few days were a blur of furtive activity. Meyer, Armed with a high-resolution photo of Carol's keychain she had sneakily snapped during their previous visit, uploaded the image to the website and ordered the duplicates. She opted for expedited shipping, her anxiety growing with each passing hour. When the small, padded envelope finally arrived, Myers' hands trembled as she tore it open. 4 gleaming, identical keys winked back at her. It was time. She planned her next visit to Carol's with meticulous detail. A casual lunch, a feigned interest in Carol's garden, a distraction long enough to swap the keychains in the hall. Meyer even practiced the swap with her own keys, the click of the carabiner a deafening sound in the otherwise silent house. The day arrived, heavy with anticipation. Meyer chose a breezy, floral dress, hoping to project an air of normalcy, while beneath the fabric, her heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. Time to put her plan into action. A quick exchange. The petunias held Carol captive. Back aching, she muttered a litany of complaints about pests and soil amendments. The sun caught fire in the massive diamond on her ring finger as she probed the earth, her expression a study in concentration. Meyer, a silent observer from the kitchen window, felt her pulse accelerate to a frantic drumbeat. The moment had arrived. Second-guessing was a luxury she could no longer afford. She inhaled deeply, fighting the telltale tremor in her grasp. The duplicate keys, nestled in her pocket, felt like leaden weights, symbols of her coming betrayal. A glance at the discarded apple core on the counter offered a tableau of normalcy, a cruel counterpoint to the turmoil brewing inside her. Another steadying breath, and Meyer slipped out, adopting a stealth she hadn't known she possessed. The aroma of roses, usually a source of comfort, now pressed down like a heavy shroud. She edged along the house, a phantom in her own domain. Carol's humming, a monotonous drone, scraped against Meyer's raw nerves. Closer. Just a few feet remained. Meyer's fingers found the cool, hard shape of the keys in her pocket. Carol, is she called, striving for a tone of nonchalance that felt utterly false. Carol straightened, a smudge of dirt adorning her cheek. Yes, darling, as she replied, a cloying sweetness coating her words like cheap confection. I thought I glimpsed a hummingbird near the bird bath, Meyer said, gesturing towards the distant corner. You know how they fascinate you. Carol's face brightened. Hummingbirds were her irresistible lure. Oh, really? Where? She began to drift towards the bird bath, gloved hands still in place. This was the opening. As Carol's attention shifted, Meyer glided silently to the small table beside the gardening chair. Carol's purse rested there. Meyer lifted it, unzipped it, swiftly located the key ring, and executed the switch. Returning the purse to its original position, she retreated, struggling to project an air of casualness as Carol reached her destination. A wave of giddiness threatened to pull Meyer under. She braced herself against the house, fighting the nausea. Had she been spotted? Had her movements betrayed her? Carol remained absorbed, peering at the bird bath, unsuspecting. I don't see it, as she announced, a touch of disappointment coloring her voice. Perhaps it's flown off. Perhaps, Meyer echoed, her voice a thread. The exchange was complete. The scheme was set in motion. Yet, rather than triumph, a chilling apprehension settled deep within her. What, she wondered, had she truly unleashed? Locked out. The key grated in the lock, offering no purchase. Carol wiggled it, leaned against the unyielding oak, and tried again. Still nothing. A bitter taste of frustration coated her tongue. She examined the key. It appeared correct, felt right, yet stubbornly refused to engage. Unbelievable, as she muttered, plunging her hand deeper into her purse. Perhaps a mistake had been made. But no, there they were, the spare set, gleaming mockingly under the porch light. They, too, were useless. A wave of hot anger surged through her. Only one explanation seemed plausible. She strode across the meticulously kept lawn, the cool autumn air offering little respite from her mounting fury. Light spilled warmly from Myers' kitchen window. Carol hammered on the door, the sharp sound cutting through the evening quiet. Meyer opened it, initial concern etching her face, which quickly dissolved into guardedness as she registered Carol's expression. "Carol? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" Carol spat, her voice laced with acid. "Hardly a mystery, Meyer. My keys are defunct. And I suspect you know precisely why." Meyer blinked, her features hardening ever so slightly. "I'm afraid you've lost me." "Spare me the innocent act. My keys were present and accounted for this morning. Now they are useless. And you just happened to be here. Surely you anticipated I'd notice." "Notice what, Carol? That you're suddenly incapable of unlocking your own front door?" Meyer folded her arms, a subtle act of defiance. "Perhaps you simply misplaced them. Remember last week? You were convinced you'd lost your reading glasses at the library, only to find them perched on your head." A flush crept up Carol's neck. "This is different, Meyer. My house keys. This is about security, about good faith. Did you take them? Did you even consider the ramifications?" Meyer's tone remained even, a deliberate contrast to Carol's escalating agitation. "I haven't touched your keys, Carol. Try backtracking. Maybe they slipped out of your bag at the market." Carol's eyes narrowed, her gaze a laser. "Don't treat me like a fool. This is no accident. Where are they, Meyer?" The anonymous tip. The hum of the refrigerator was a constant companion as Meyer sat hunched over her laptop at the kitchen table. The glow of the screen illuminated her face, highlighting the worry lines etched around her eyes. She'd been researching local drug laws for hours, her brow furrowed in concentration. Possession, distribution, manufacturing, the legalese blurred together, but the potential penalties were crystal clear. Prison time. Fines that could bankrupt a family. She chewed on her thumbnail, a nervous habit she thought she'd kicked years ago. Carol had planted drugs in her purse. What else was she capable of? And how many other people had she targeted? Meyer shuddered, imagining the possibilities. She had to do something. Taking a deep breath, she navigated to the police department's website and found the number for anonymous tips. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she copied it down. She wrote it on a small slip of paper, then crumpled the paper, and finally smoothed it back out. This was it. She waited until after midnight, when the house was quiet and even the neighbor's dog had stopped barking. Grabbing her cell phone, she slipped out onto the back porch, the cool night air prickling her skin. She dialed the number, her hand trembling slightly. A gruff voice answered. "Police tip line." Meyer swallowed hard. I want to report some suspicious activity." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Go ahead," the voice said, impatient. "There's a house on Maple Street. Number 14. There's a lot of unusual traffic coming and going at all hours. People staying for just a few minutes, exchanging packages. I've seen them." She paused, struggling to keep her voice steady. "I think they might be dealing drugs." "Your name?" "I want to remain anonymous." "Okay." Anything else? Just keep an eye on the place. She hung up, her ears ringing. She stood on the porch for a long moment, staring out into the darkness. Had she done the right thing? What if Carol found out? Would she retaliate? Maya wrapped her arms around herself, trying to ward off the chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. A wave of nausea washed over her. She had just thrown a stone into a very dangerous pond. Now all she could do was wait for the ripples. Confrontation and confession. The blare of the doorbell ripped through the quiet Sunday morning. David, still bleary-eyed, shuffled to the door, expecting a delivery. Instead, two uniformed officers stood on the porch, their faces grim. "Mrs. Carol Peterson resides here," one of them asked, his voice devoid of warmth. David, confused, nodded. "She's just inside." "What is this about?" Before he could react, they pushed past him, their presence filling the small house like a suffocating fog. "Police warrant. We need to search the premises." Carol emerged from the kitchen, a dish towel clutched in her hand. "What in heaven's name is going on?" she demanded, her voice sharp with indignation. The search was swift and thorough. Drawers were emptied, cupboards ransacked, and the air crackled with tension. Finally, one of the officers emerged from Carol's meticulously organized closet, a small plastic baggie in his gloved hand. The baggie contained a white, powdery substance. Carol gasped, her face paling. "What is that? I've never seen that before in my life." You're under arrest for possession of a controlled substance," the officer stated, his tone unwavering. The ride to the station was a blur for Carol, the flashing lights of the police car reflecting in her wide, terrified eyes. David followed behind in their car, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. Maya arrived at the station shortly after, her stomach churning with a mixture of anxiety and grim satisfaction. She found David sitting in the waiting area, his face buried in his hands. "David, what happened?" she asked softly, kneeling beside him. He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "I don't know, Maya. I just don't understand." She swears she didn't know anything about it. Maya took a deep breath. "I need to talk to her." The officer at the desk hesitated but eventually relented. He led Maya to a small, sterile room where Carol sat hunched over, her perfectly coiffed hair slightly askew. "Carol," Maya said, her voice firm. "I think you and I both know why you're really here." Carol looked up, her eyes filled with a mixture of defiance and fear. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "The drugs. Carol. They weren't mine, were they? You planted them in my purse, and now someone planted some in your house. Maybe the same person." Carol's composure crumbled. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her makeup. "Oh, Maya," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I was jealous. You have everything. David loves you so much, and I wanted to hurt you." Maya stared at her, speechless. The confession, so blunt and raw, hung in the air between them. "You framed me?" "Yes," Carol choked out, her voice barely a whisper. "I put them in your purse. I'm so sorry."